Well, Sally, I want to start first with what I think is on a lot of Iowans' minds with this overturn of Roe v. Wade. Does that immediately change Iowans' access to abortion?
No. Abortion is still safe and legal in Iowa. People can make appointments, and it will remain safe and legal in Iowa until or unless the governor gets a special session of the legislature together and they pass a law and sign it into law, invoking some sort of ban.
And touching on that, walk me through the avenues that it would take for abortion to become illegal here in the state. What could that look like?
Well, essentially, a law would need to be passed to make abortion illegal. Laws that were in effect long ago, pre-Roe v. Wade, once they're found unconstitutional, they don't just revive magically. There needs to be a new law passed. So either they could wait for a new legislative session, but of course, we don't know if the Republicans will maintain total control that they have now, or the governor can call a special session of the legislature to look at laws on this subject. And I imagine that that is what she is likely to do. And then it'll be whatever passes the legislature and she signs into law.
And now, given whether that's in a special session or in the coming session, given the proposals that we've seen from lawmakers in recent years, what do you anticipate that could look like here in Iowa, that proposal? Do you see that being a total ban, or if you had to guess, what would you anticipate that might look like?
I would expect a total ban because the earlier proposals were in an environment where Roe v. Wade was, well, at least where Casey was in effect. And so they limited the possibilities of what many states did, which is pass laws that would hopefully challenge Roe and Casey. So the 6-week ban, the 72-hour waiting period, and the 24-hour waiting period. But with no Casey and no Roe and no Iowa constitutional impediment, I expect they would pass some form of a ban. The exact contours, whether there would be exceptions for the life of the woman, I expect there will be, that exception will exist. Whether there's an exception for serious health issues for the woman, fetal deformities, rape and incest, all of those are up to whatever they're planning. And also questions about whether it's criminal law, and if it is it criminalizing the provider or is it also criminalizing the woman? Those are decisions they would need to make. And the only thing I think stopping those decisions is if the public lets them know that that's not tolerable or votes them out of office.
And this is all coming as we're seeing quite a shift in our own Supreme Court here in Iowa. We've got Justice Brent Apple is going to be retiring next month. He's the sole Democratic appointed justice. So now we'll have 7 Republicans appointed on this court. I guess, how do you foresee that impacting potentially some of this legislation down the road?
Well, the other important thing to add is that not only is it 7 people appointed by the Republican governor, but they changed the merit selection system so that it was truly nonpartisan merit selection where half were appointed by the governor, half elected by lawyers, and chaired by another justice on the court. But they removed the Supreme Court justice chairing it and gave the governor the majority of the nominating commission, undermining our merit selection system. So it's a double whammy. Obviously, I expect them to go further to the right, although this opinion, there's not much further right to go on from this opinion on that issue.
And given the way this U.S. opinion is written, does this open up for other enumerated rights, things like same-sex marriage, interracial marriage? Are there other rights that we know now that you also see could be potentially under scrutiny of the law coming forward?
Well, Justice Alito's opinion tries to say, oh, nothing else is at risk because abortion involves potential life. But his reasoning does not support that. His reasoning could attack any right that that has been found that Americans view as fundamental certainly the right to privacy, which he treats with contempt. Rights to contraception, which is based on the right to privacy, are at risk. Moreover, some forms of contraception could be understood to violate some of the new laws passed, and they've been attacked for years with misunderstandings of how they work as abortificants, and so therefore there's risk that some of those could be banned. Even such a fundamental decision as Loving versus Virginia, which was about interracial marriage. The way Alito writes is that if something wasn't recognized in 1781 when the U.S. Constitution was ratified, or if it's through the 14th Amendment in 1868, then it isn't a fundamental right recognized longstanding in history. Well, of course, interracial marriage was banned because of the support of slavery. So when the Constitution was passed, you know, the states were busy saying children of women who were slaves and raped by the people who purported to own them were not the children of the owner, but the white man, but were children of the slave, and therefore could be sold as well, creating an incentive, of course, for rape of slaves. But there was no way they would allow a white man to marry a black woman, especially a potential slave or a former slave. And in 1868, even though slavery was gone, most states banned interracial marriage. So if that's the principle we look to, how was it viewed in 1868 or 1781, then there's a lot of rights that are up for grabs and could be reversed.
And I think, too, there's been a lot of questions over IVF and something like that, you know, if we drill down at it, could this become illegal, you know, under some of what we're seeing? Your thoughts on what that could look like?
I believe it was the Oklahoma statute, I'm not positive, that defined human life as beginning at the moment of fertilization and banned anything disrupting, taking away or destroying a fertilized egg. Well, IVF fertilizes more than one egg, and some eggs are destroyed with that before implantation, and there are other times, I believe several fertilized eggs tend to be implanted because it's not clear which and how many and if they will all mature to term. And sometimes there's been a need to cull the ones that are not going to survive in order to support the others. I'm not clear on all of the medical details of IVF, but that's my basic understanding. And if that's the case and you ban anything destroying a fertilized egg, you're going to have a lot of difficulties with that.
And right now we're seeing, you know, obviously in Iowa it's under question, but we know states like Illinois and Minnesota keeping it legal, looks like for the time being. Anything under question as far as traveling to other states? Do you see that becoming an issue, more legislation in the future to prevent that, to prevent women, you know, coming from a state where it's illegal and going to a state where it's legal to have the procedure?
There are certainly some states that are passing those kinds of laws, and that then imagines how do you enforce that without engaging in surveillance of every pregnant woman? So if a woman is known to be pregnant and then at some point is no longer pregnant, there'll be investigations. Did she travel out of state? Did she have an abortion in state? Did she have a miscarriage? Do we trust that her miscarriage was really a miscarriage and not an abortion? In order to enforce a law like that, because there's nothing barring pregnant women from traveling, there is a right to travel. So the question is, what if she loses the pregnancy and has a miscarriage out of state? So the level of surveillance would be very deep for any pregnant woman. And again, these laws are intended, essentially are treating women not as independent people, but rather as incubators for the all-important fetus, and having only the rights of an incubator. And that's a grave risk for women.
And I guess, too, what does this maybe expose doctors to as we move forward? I would imagine there could be a threat of criminal charges being placed on a physician who is potentially doing these in states where it's not allowed.
Most of the laws that have banned abortion have set criminal penalties for the provider. Very few are setting criminal penalties for the woman so far. That's coming, I'm sure. But so it does put great pressure on doctors who are treating women. A woman comes in with a partial miscarriage. How do they need for her health and safety to remove what's left in her? It's not going to become a child. It's no birth will occur. But will that be viewed as an abortion? Will they be afraid to do that? A fetus much further along, let's say, dies in the womb. Will they remove it before if it fully dies? It's clear it's dying and not going to proceed. But if they remove it before it's completely dead, they're going to protect the woman's health. If they wait until it's dead, it's already putting things into the woman's body that can cause her to die. And there's been recent articles about doctors in Poland afraid to remove dying fetuses from a woman for fear of prosecution and then women dying.
Well, Sally, I think that was the questions I had. Anything that I didn't touch on that you'd really want viewers to understand with this?
Well, I think what people have to know, even if they're anti-abortion, is abortion is going to continue. Women are going to have abortions, whether it's legal or not. And for women who are middle and upper class, they will be able to access safe and legal abortions by traveling to another state. For poor women, for women in domestic abusive relationships who can't let their spouse or boyfriend know that they are accessing abortion services, they're the ones that are going to die or have serious medical problems because they're going to be either self-aborting, trying to get the medication on their own, which may or may not be the real correct medication if they order it online from a disreputable source. Their lives and health are going to be gravely at risk, but they will, if they need an abortion, they will have one regardless of what the law is. And for those of us who care about women's health and safety and reproductive rights, it'll be up to us to help women get to where they need to be for legal abortions. It'll be up to us to contact our legislators, to protest in the streets, to vote. Most important, vote.